The pattern you have will do you a small and a large. Just remember you need to cut the larger ears for the larger one and the small ears for the smaller one. When you print this out, crop it if you want to make this even larger. Print them on the same sheet if you want them this size. Print them on the 8x10 sheet. So you'll have that free download. I'll be putting a link down below so you can download this and print it on an 8x10 sheet and get a small one and a large one with their ears. And then, of course, you have this size that we'll be doing. So let me show you results. If you decide to hand sew it, I did the small one and I hand sewed it and turned it inside out. And then, of course, you'll stitch the openings closed and attach buttons to it. I also crocheted like a little tie for its neck so that if it were being pulled, you know, and I did a tail. Now I did all this by hand, so this larger one we're going to do together. And you're going to have raw edges and some tattering because, well, by the time you hand sew it and turn it inside out and stuff it, it's going to be, you know, a little bit different and really truly have that primitive old-timey look. But we can achieve the same thing if you decide to sew it. And I sewn it closed here and closed the openings, and of course put your initials and the year or put your label on it. Now this is a little bit of coffee stain from where I had tea dyed fabrics, and this happened to be in the vicinity. Remember, anything you coffee stain or tea stain, anything is in the vicinity, it will get stained as well. So when I actually stain this, I have a starter already. But that just still gives it that primitive look. And this is just some muslin fabric, and I love it. I think it looks adorable. So I thought you would enjoy doing a larger one. I went to the sewing machine and I sewed my sheep. And you want to leave these openings because once you turn this inside out and fill it with polyfill, you will then use those openings to close up your sheep. I need to turn this inside out, and I've already done the ears. Now on the ears, if you do this at a sewing machine, you would sew straight across here because we'll do a basting stitch and pull these up and make them like this so that they can be sewn to the actual sheep. And I can go back and to dye these. This time I like to dye mine after I put them together and assemble them, because then all of the threads and anything that was not will be included in that. So once I've got this point, I will take a skew or a stick and place it in there. And that helps to turn it out a lot quicker. So here's me a skew, and down where I have my thumb through that hole, I just will push it back on itself. You can do this with a turning stick, and some people use scissors. I try not to use scissors unless they have a blunt side, because the point can pierce through your stitching. It can also cut your threads. It is better to do something that has a dull end. The polyfill stick that comes in the bag when you buy the name brand, it does an excellent job at turning, for me anyway. And once you've done as many turnings as I have, you kind of get accustomed to how to do it, and you get that little groove. As you can see, I've done popped that out. Voila! Right here on the head, that one, you need that bluntness of a stick, just like this one, and you get a better turn. And just knowing that where your curves are and turning it out yourself, you already know what needs to be more pushed out. As far as clipping the rounds on this, I did not, because my stitching is so close. And when you do this on machine, you can minimize your stitch to like a 2 if you wanted to. I did this one on 2.5, and it turned out just perfect. I'm fine with this. You could do a 2 if you felt that you wouldn't make these turns to make a smaller stitch, you can make the turns a lot easier. And as you can see, we've already got this out. Now, when I fill it with polyfill, I will take, and I generally will just make sure that's good and even. See that I did not back stitch there, and it's simply fine. These two will come together, and you will stitch that opening closed on both sides. The ears, you will not polyfill. This will do a basting stitch, and that will draw them up, and they'll look like this. And we'll be sewing those on, just like this one right here. And you could give them an eye if you wanted to. You could dot them there, or make a little line, whichever you prefer. They just look so adorable. And when you see this larger size, I think you're going to be really, really tickled and want to do one of your own. And the small one does take a little more time, but it is so cute. And like I said, those are your options. Machine sewing them or even hand stitching them. They both will turn out great. So let me get this polyfilled and I'll be right back. Okay, so we've finished stuffing the lamb. Got him set. Got the ears here. And these are real easy to do because I have left them to where they simply just have to be brought together. And that's real easy to do. So basically I'm going to take my needle and thread, and I've already got it knotted. And I just do a basting stitch because I'm going to be sewing this on. So pretty much it's super simple. I just make sure that that knot does not come through. And I go ahead and just run my needle through there real quick and draw that up. And it makes it easier to control and anchor it once I've got that drawn through. And besides, it's small, so it gives you a lot more control. And then that way you get this nice little closure of the ear. And so you want to make sure that your thread, if you started it underneath, then you want it to go out underneath. Does that make sense? If you started it on top, then you want it to come out on top. So see, there's my other end. And then here is one end. Now, that may not be a big deal to everybody, but if I am trying to get this to where I can make it small and gather it up, once I pull that through and I've got it basted, I can go back here, pull it, and push that scrunched up and tie it closed, and that way it will keep the rolls in it, and they stay kind of even and a lot easier to control it, maintain it. Alright, so now that one is ready, and you could go ahead and sew it to your lamb. And I'll just like it to kind of be bigger opening. Your ears can be however you want them, and they're going to go somewhere right about here. You can make them higher, lower, personal preference. You can even attach them to hang down. It is a personal preference. I want to do mine up. We'll just attach them as a whip stitch. That's just as easy. That way we just go back up, just go slightly into the fabric, capture it, and when you pull on it, it's going to help it to stand up. Just do the whole edge. So again, just going up there and capturing it. When you pull on it, it will make it stand up. I've gotten this one on, and I did clean it up a little bit. Sometimes if you close off the raw edge a little bit with a few stitches, helps give you a little bit of thread to anchor to when you're tying it on. And so I just stitched it on there as best I knew how with a back and forth stitch. And I'll do this side the same way and get the ears on. Got our ears on. They look pretty good. So to do the eye, you might want to hit somewhere in here. You'll just have to look at yours and see. But when you do, take your thread through there and just do like a 1/8 of an inch area. And you want to just take the thread back through there. Don't do a knot, but make sure that you go in and out of the same hole. And then you want to make sure that you kind of pull that real good and do that 2 or 3 times. That just anchors the thread into place real well for you. Now, you can leave it just as this. If you go under those sideways, such as here, just go under them and do a knot, just a plain knot. Like when I bring it through, I leave my loop. I'm going to bring my pin in through that loop and just do a plain knot right there. Then go down through the threads. And when you do, come out on the opposite side and you can just see where they're lined up and try to hit center on the other side so it's even with that one. Now when you bring it through, you'll do the same thing. Just try to stay focused. And now you're going to do the very same thing. I just go up here, make sure it's 1/8 of an inch, and create the line there. And just pull it a little bit so it draws it up. Go back through it one more time. That's the trick, is making sure you get your needle back through the same area. And I generally do 3 of those. Go one more time there. I did get that one a little further out. But remember, it's primitive, so that is A-okay. Alright, making sure I go through that time. And see, I've got my thread too far out here. So I'm going to try to actually go back through there to correct that. Now, that way it looks okay. I'm going to go back under there and make a knot. And I'm going to do that again on this one. And now we have the eyes made. I want to just do me more of a knot here. That way it gives it that round look. I'm going to put my needle through the center of all those threads. Bring it out. And then I will snip it. And that does the eye. So we got our eyes made. Right now, for the tail, I've got this cotton cord or yarn that you can use, and I'm just going to probably braid it. So generally what I'll do is, you can do a twist one. You can just twist it if that works for you, if you want that. Or you can do like me. I kind of look and see how long I need it. And then I will do 3 of these so I can actually take and braid it. I've got my 3 there. I need to be able to tie that around these. So I'm just going to roll that around there so that I will be able to braid them together. Trying to loop it through there, get through that, so it knots here on that, just like a macrame almost. So now I have these 3, and I'm going to braid those. That. And then of course I can take this little string if I want to and kind of let it go in there. So I just braid it. It just takes a second. And if you don't know how to braid, you can what they call twist, plaid it. Plaiting is basically braiding. It's just you have your knot flat on the top versus the bottom. So give me a few more minutes and I'll finish braiding this up. Okay, so I have my braid here. And when I get to the bottom, I just tie it with the existing strings that are there. And I know I have this loop up here. It's a little too long, but I just kind of flip that against the braid. And then that way when I put it here on his bottom side, back side, I can take and just sew that into place so that it hangs down. You can make it as short or as long as you like. It's really a personal preference. So I have my needle here and I can real easily just go in the back here and I just run my needle center ways where I want it, and then I can just go about stitching it on. I mean, you could actually wrap the thread on it if you wanted to, round it on it, whichever works best to get it anchored in there. I know the lighting is not as good as it could be, but just get it anchored. You can make it as tight or as loose as you like. Like I said, you could wrap the thread around it if you wanted to. Let me try that. See how I like that. I don't want it to be too showy of the threads. So let me try that. And I don't want it pulled up too tight. Got to be careful when you tie this on, or where you put your thread through is going to show up real loud and proud there. I have to do a little finessing, stitching that pretty good. And I'll just tie that in a knot and I'll be done. Make sure I go through the cotton again. I have to look neat. Now I'm going to put a tie around his neck as well, so I can do the tie, and that'll just look like a pull toy. You do this part, you don't have to be too long, or you can do it one-sidedly, just make it look cute. You can just do a regular old string. You can make it a collar with a bell. There's different choices. Use your imagination. You can make it simple or as prim as you like. And that way I've got me just a little bit dangling there. I might tie it around so it looks like a handle. Like I said, like a pull toy. That's the cuteness of it. Or you can double it back up. I think I'll try just do it a pull. If I don't like it, I can do something else. Alright, so now it's kind of like a pull. And the next thing is you can put buttons, or if you have wooden spools, you can put those here. You would need 2 wooden spools on the bottom, or 4 buttons. And that way it looks like a pull toy. And then you have your rope around his neck and his braided tail. So next I'm going to do his buttons. So here we have our primitive, do-it-yourself, handmade lamb, sheep, whichever you prefer to call them. And in a loving, joking way, my husband said, "Are those camel?" So here we go. And they do look like primitive, old-timey pull toys. So at this point, you can take and tea or coffee stain them. Remember, that video is here on the channel. If you enjoyed this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe. Until the next DIY, this is Elizabeth. Well, I'll be crafting y'all.